The research ship Horizon floated quietly through space near a distant moon. Captain Jacob Miller stood on the bridge watching the purple and green planet below. His crew had been studying this moon for 3 days now. Everything seemed peaceful and safe. Dr. Lisa Jordan was down on the surface with her team. She was a scientist who studied alien life. The moon had forests, breathable air, and water. It looked like a perfect place for humans to explore. Lisa walked through the violet trees with 5 other crew members. The botanist Claire Martinez collected plant samples. The engineer Danny Price scanned the rocks with his equipment. Everything was going well. Then they found something strange. Hidden in the side of a mountain was a huge black door. It was made of stone that seemed to swallow light. Strange symbols covered the surface. Lisa touched the symbols carefully. They were old, very old. Danny found a control panel near the door. He was young and curious, always wanting to know how things worked. He pressed some buttons before Lisa could stop him. The door made a deep humming sound. Lights flickered on inside a dark tunnel. Lisa felt worried. Something about this place made her nervous. The symbols on the wall looked like warnings. She tried to read them with her translation device, but the language was too ancient. Only pieces of words came through. Danger, sealed, never open. But it was too late. The door was already opening. The team walked inside slowly. Their flashlights cut through the darkness. The tunnel led to a large chamber carved from black stone. In the center stood a tall cylinder made of energy. It glowed with a soft blue light. Something dark moved inside it. Danny walked closer to examine it. He found another control panel built into the floor. Before anyone could stop him, he touched it. The energy cylinder flickered once, twice, then went dark. For a moment, nothing happened. The team stood frozen, waiting. Then they heard it. A sound like metal scraping on stone. Something was moving in the shadows. It stepped into their flashlight beams, and Lisa felt her blood turn cold. The creature stood 9 feet tall. Its body was covered in black armor that looked like insect shells. 4 arms hung from its torso, each ending in curved claws as long as knives. Its legs bent backward like an animal's. But the worst part was its head. 6 glowing eyes arranged in a circle stared at them. Spines grew from its skull, twitching and moving on their own. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The creature and the humans stared at each other. Then one of the crew members screamed. The creature moved faster than anything Lisa had ever seen. It crossed the chamber in one leap. The team scattered in all directions. Lisa grabbed her communicator and ran for the exit. "Horizon, this is Jordan. We have an emergency." Something was locked in here and we let it out. Jacob's voice came back immediately. "What kind of something?" "A predator. A big one. It's hunting us." Lisa reached the exit and looked back. The creature stood in the doorway, its 6 eyes reflecting the light. It tilted its head, studying them. Then it turned and ran into the forest, disappearing into the violet trees. Lisa's hands shook as she helped her team out of the tunnel. Everyone was there except Danny. She called his name, but there was no answer. When she looked back into the chamber, she saw his flashlight lying on the ground, still glowing. Danny was gone. On the horizon, Jacob listened to Lisa's report with growing concern. He called all the other teams on the surface. There were 3 groups spread across the moon, studying different areas. Each group had 4 or 5 people. None of them knew about the danger yet. Jacob made a quick decision. "All teams, this is Captain Miller. Return to your shuttles immediately. We have a hostile creature on the surface. This is not a drill." He turned to his pilot, Alan Cooper. "How fast can we get everyone off that moon?" Alan checked his screens. "The teams are spread over 100 miles. It would take at least 3 hours to pick them all up one by one. And the sun is setting in 2 hours. Jacob knew what that meant. At night, the moon's temperature dropped to -50 degrees. Anyone still on the surface would freeze to death in minutes. They needed to move fast. Lisa's voice came through again. "Jacob, it's heading east. That's where Kevin Hayes and his geology team are working." Kevin was one of Jacob's best people. He was smart and calm under pressure. Jacob hoped those qualities would keep him alive long enough for help to arrive. "Lisa, get your team to the shuttle and wait there. I'm coming down with a rescue team." "Jacob, that's too dangerous. This thing is fast and strong. Our weapons barely slowed it down." "I'm not leaving our people down there alone," Jacob said firmly. "Prepare for extraction." He turned to face his crew on the bridge. 15 people looked back at him. "I need volunteers for a rescue mission. This creature is dangerous. Some of us might not come back. I won't order anyone to go, but I'm asking." Every single person raised their hand. Jacob felt pride and sadness at the same time. These were good people, brave people. He chose 4 to come with him. Lisa, because she knew the most about the creature. Ryan Foster, their best shooter. Nicole Sanders, who had military training. And Peter Quinn, their medical officer. They armed themselves with every weapon the ship had. Railguns that could punch through metal. Plasma cutters that burned at thousands of degrees. Stun grenades and explosives. If they were going to face a monster, they would go in prepared. The shuttle dropped through the atmosphere. Through the window, Jacob could see the moon's surface. The forest looked beautiful and peaceful. Hard to believe something deadly was hunting down there. Alan's voice came through the radio. "Captain, I'm tracking something moving fast through the eastern sector. It's heading right for Kevin's position." Jacob strapped himself into his seat. "How long until we reach them?" 15 minutes. "And how long until that thing reaches them?" There was a pause. 10 minutes. Jacob closed his eyes. Kevin and his team had 10 minutes to prepare for something they had never seen before. 10 minutes to figure out how to survive against a creature that had been locked away for thousands of years. The shuttle flew faster, racing against time. Below them, in the purple forests of an alien moon, the hunt had already begun, and humanity was about to learn what it truly meant to fight for survival. Kevin Hayes was measuring rock samples when his communicator started beeping with an emergency signal. He was a calm man who rarely got excited about anything, but when he heard Captain Miller's voice telling everyone to evacuate, his heart started beating faster. He gathered his team quickly. There were 5 of them total. 2 geologists named Marcus Webb and Sophie Turner, an engineer called Greg Palmer, and a young intern named Amy Chen who was on her first space mission. "What's happening?" Amy asked, her voice shaking slightly. "I don't know yet," Kevin admitted. "But when the captain says evacuate, we move fast." Their shuttle was 2 miles away through the forest. Kevin pulled out his navigation device and plotted the fastest route. Then Lisa's voice came through on the emergency channel, describing what they had found in the temple. Marcus went pale. "A 9-foot predator with 4 arms? That's impossible." "Apparently not," Kevin said. He looked at his team. "We need to reach the shuttle, but we need to be smart about it. Stay together. Stay quiet. Keep your eyes open." They started moving through the trees. The forest was beautiful but strange. The leaves were purple and blue instead of green. The bark on the trees felt smooth like glass. Above them, small flying creatures that looked like birds with 4 wings sang unusual songs. Everything seemed peaceful. Too peaceful. Sophie suddenly stopped walking. "Do you hear that?" Everyone went quiet. At first, Kevin heard nothing. Then he caught it. A clicking sound like claws tapping on stone. It was far away but getting closer. "Move faster," Kevin ordered. "But stay quiet." They walked quickly through the trees. The clicking sound followed them. Sometimes it seemed to come from the left, then from the right. The creature was circling them, staying just out of sight. Greg pointed ahead. "There's a canyon up there. If we can cross it, we might lose whatever is following us." Kevin checked his map. The canyon was narrow, only about 20 feet across. There was a natural bridge made of rock. They could cross it in less than a minute. But as they approached the canyon, Kevin saw something that made him stop. On the other side of the bridge, standing perfectly still, was the creature. It was even more terrifying than Lisa had described. The black armor covering its body seemed to absorb the light around it. The 4 arms hung loosely at its sides, but Kevin could see the muscles underneath, coiled and ready to strike. The 6 glowing eyes watched them without blinking. Amy made a small, frightened sound. The creature's head snapped toward her. The spines on its skull all pointed in her direction. "Nobody move," Kevin whispered. "Don't run. It might trigger its hunting instincts." They stood frozen for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 seconds. The creature tilted its head, studying them. Kevin got the feeling it was trying to decide something. Were they dangerous? Were they food? Then Captain Miller's shuttle roared overhead. The creature looked up at the sky, distracted for a moment. Kevin saw his chance. "Run back to the trees!" The team scattered. The creature leaped across the canyon in one impossible jump. It landed where Kevin had been standing a second before. Its claws gouged deep marks in the stone. Kevin and his team ran through the forest. Behind them, they could hear the creature crashing through the trees. It was fast, much faster than them, But the dense forest slowed it down. Its large body couldn't move as easily between the tight-packed trees. There, Sophie pointed ahead. A cave! They ran toward a dark opening in a cliff face. It was small, maybe 6 feet tall and 8 feet wide. The creature would have trouble fitting inside. They dove through the entrance just as the creature burst from the trees behind them. It tried to follow them into the cave but got stuck. Its broad shoulders were too wide for the entrance. It roared in frustration, a sound like tearing metal mixed with an animal scream. Then it backed away and disappeared into the forest. Kevin turned on his flashlight and looked around the cave. It went back about 30 feet and then ended in a solid rock wall. They were trapped. We just went from being chased to being cornered, Marcus said, breathing hard. Great plan. We're alive, Kevin replied. That's what matters. Now we wait for the captain. Greg checked his communicator. No signal in here. The rock must be blocking it. Amy sat down against the wall, trying not to cry. It's going to wait for us out there, isn't it? Kevin didn't answer because he knew she was right. The creature was a hunter. It knew they had nowhere to go. It could afford to be patient. Outside, they could hear it moving around. Sometimes it would appear at the cave entrance, its 6 eyes glowing in the darkness. It would watch them for a while, then leave. But it always came back. Hours passed. The sun was getting lower. Soon it would be night and the cold would come. Kevin knew they couldn't stay in the cave forever. But he also knew that running was suicide. We need a plan, Sophie said. Some way to get past it. We could try to hurt it, Greg suggested. We have tools. The plasma torch, the rock hammer. Lisa said their weapons barely slowed it down. Kevin reminded him. Our tools won't do much better. So what do we do? Marcus asked. Just sit here and hope. Before Kevin could answer, they heard the sound of shuttle engines. Through the cave entrance, they saw Jacob's rescue shuttle landing in a clearing about 100 yards away. The rear door opened and 5 people came out, all carrying weapons. The creature heard it too. It turned away from the cave and moved toward the new arrivals. Kevin realized with horror that the captain didn't know the creature was so close. He ran to the cave entrance and shouted, Captain, it's right there, in the trees to your left. Jacob looked up and saw Kevin. He also saw the creature as it stepped out of the forest. The 2 sides faced each other. 5 humans with guns against 1 alien predator. The creature's spines all pointed forward. It lowered itself into a crouch ready to attack. But it didn't charge immediately. It was being cautious now. These humans had bigger weapons than the others. Lisa raised some kind of scanner and pointed it at the creature. It's analyzing us, she called out, looking for weaknesses. Then let's not show it any, Jacob replied. He raised his railgun. On 3, we fire at the ground in front of it. Not trying to kill it, just scare it off. 1, 2, 3. 5 weapons fired at once. The ground in front of the creature exploded in a shower of dirt and rocks. The creature jumped backward, startled. It had probably never been shot at before. Kevin, get your team to the shuttle, Jacob ordered. We'll cover you. Kevin didn't need to be told twice. He and his team ran from the cave toward the shuttle. The creature started to follow them, but Jacob's team fired again, forcing it back. They all made it to the shuttle. Kevin helped Amy inside while Sophie and Marcus climbed in behind her. Greg was the last one, and as he reached the door, the creature made one final attempt. It charged across the clearing, moving faster than should be possible. Ryan shot it directly in the chest. The railgun round hit the creature's armor and bounced off, but the impact knocked it sideways. It crashed into a tree and fell. Everyone scrambled inside the shuttle. Alan lifted off immediately. Through the window, they watched the creature get back to its feet. It stared up at them as they rose into the sky. Even from a distance, Kevin could see intelligence in those 6 eyes. The creature wasn't just an animal. It was smart, maybe as smart as a human. And it was learning. On the horizon, Jacob assembled everyone in the main briefing room. Kevin's team was safe, but they still had 2 more teams on the surface. And now they knew what they were dealing with. That thing is unlike anything we've encountered before, Lisa said, showing her scanner data to the group. Its armor is incredibly dense. Its speed and strength are off the charts. And worst of all, it's intelligent. It was testing us, learning our tactics. So how do we fight it? Nicole asked. Jacob looked at the map of the moon's surface. 2 teams were still down there. 8 people total. 8 people who were counting on him to save them. We don't fight it, he said finally. We outsmart it. Jacob stood in the briefing room studying the map on the screen. Two teams were still on the surface. The first team was led by Frank Martinez, a senior scientist studying the moon's atmosphere. He had 3 people with him. The second team was Claire Martinez, Frank's wife, who was a botanist. She was alone at a research station 3 miles from everyone else. The sun would set in 90 minutes. After that, the temperature would drop fast. Anyone caught outside would freeze within 15 minutes. They needed to get everyone off that moon before darkness came. Lisa pointed to Frank's location on the map. They're in a valley between 2 mountains. There's only one way in or out. If the creature traps them there, they'll have nowhere to run. What about Claire? Jacob asked. Her station is more open, Nicole said. But that means less cover. Less protection. Jacob made a decision. We'll split up. Nicole, Ryan, and Peter, you take the shuttle and get Claire. Lisa, Kevin, and I will take the other shuttle to Frank's position. Alan, you coordinate from up here. Captain, splitting up means we can't help each other if something goes wrong, Peter warned. I know, Jacob said, but we don't have time to do this one at a time. We get both teams and meet back at the landing zone. Everyone gets on the horizon and we leave this moon behind. The plan sounded simple, but everyone in the room knew it wouldn't be that easy. Nicole's team took the smaller shuttle and headed for Claire's research station. The station was a small building made of metal and plastic, designed to withstand the harsh night temperatures. Through the window, they could see Claire moving around inside. She was alive and safe for now. Ryan landed the shuttle near the station. Nicole opened the door and called out through her communicator. Claire, this is Nicole Sanders from the Horizon. We're here to evacuate you. Grab whatever you need and get to the shuttle. Claire's voice came back, shaky but determined. Thank God you're here. I've been watching something move around outside for the past hour. I think it knows I'm in here. Nicole felt a chill run down her spine. Can you see it now? No, it disappeared about 10 minutes ago. That was even worse. Nicole looked at Ryan and Peter. They were all thinking the same thing. The creature was out there somewhere waiting. Claire, we're coming to get you. Be ready to move fast. The 3 of them left the shuttle and ran to the research station. The door opened and Claire was standing there with a bag of samples and equipment. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. Let's go, Nicole said, taking her arm. They made it halfway back to the shuttle when Peter saw something. Movement! In the trees to the right! The creature stepped out from behind a large rock. But something was different. This one was smaller than the one they had seen before. Its armor was a darker shade of black and its movements were quicker, more graceful. There's 2 of them, Ryan breathed. There's 2 of these things. The second creature moved to cut off their path to the shuttle. It didn't attack, just stood there watching them. Nicole realized what it was doing. It was hurting them, driving them away from their escape route. Back to the station, Nicole ordered. Move! They ran back to the building. Claire unlocked the door with shaking hands and they all rushed inside. Nicole slammed it shut and locked it. Through the window they could see the creature approaching slowly. That door won't hold it, Peter said, looking at the thin metal frame. It doesn't have to hold it forever, Nicole replied. Just long enough for us to think of something. Meanwhile, Jacob's shuttle landed in the valley where Frank's team was working. Frank ran to meet them as soon as they landed. He was a tall man with gray hair and a worried expression. Captain Miller, thank you for coming. We saw something moving on the mountain ridge about 30 minutes ago. We've been hiding in our shuttle since then. Good thinking, Jacob said. Where are the others? Frank pointed to the shuttle. Inside, 3 people were visible through the windows. A young man named Chris Walker, an older woman named Helen Park, and a technician called Sam Butler. Everyone accounted for? Jacob asked. Yes, all 4 of us are here. Then let's get moving. We need to be off this moon before dark. They started walking toward Frank's shuttle when Lisa's scanner started beeping. She looked at the screen and her face went white. Jacob, I'm reading movement. Something big coming fast from the north. The first creature, the larger one, appeared at the top of the valley. It stood on a rocky outcrop, looking down at them. Even from a distance, they could see its 6 eyes glowing. Everyone in the shuttle, Frank shouted. But as they ran toward the vehicle, the creature did something unexpected. Instead of attacking, it threw its head back and made a loud screeching sound. It echoed through the valley like a siren. It's calling the other one, Lisa said. They're coordinating. Kevin understood immediately. They're hunting as a team. One drives the prey, the other cuts off the escape route. Just like wolves. How intelligent are these things? Jacob asked. Very, Lisa replied. Maybe as intelligent as us. They reached Frank's shuttle just as the creature started climbing down the valley wall. Its claws found grip in the rock easily. It moved like a spider, fast and sure. Frank tried to start the shuttle, but nothing happened. He pressed the controls again. Still nothing. The engine won't start. Sam jumped into the pilot's seat and opened the diagnostic panel. Something cut the power cable. Recently. Like in the last hour. Everyone realized what that meant. The creature had been here already. It had sabotaged their shuttle while they were hiding inside it. It had planned this. They're not just smart, Kevin said quietly. They're tactical. Jacob looked around the valley. Steep walls on three sides. One exit which was now blocked by the creature. Their other shuttle was nearby, but it could only hold 6 people comfortably. There were 10 of them total. Everyone into our shuttle, he ordered. We'll make it work. Squeeze in. They ran to Jacob's shuttle and climbed inside. It was cramped with 10 people, but they all fit. Jacob took the pilot's seat and started the engines. The creature was halfway down the valley wall now, moving faster. The shuttle lifted off just as the creature reached the ground. It leaped at them, claws extended. One claw caught the shuttle's landing gear and held on. The entire vehicle lurched sideways. It's hanging on, Lisa shouted. Jacob pushed the engines to maximum power. The shuttle climbed higher, but the creature's weight was dragging them down. Through the window, they could see it climbing up the landing gear toward the main body of the shuttle. Ryan opened the side door and leaned out with his railgun. Hold her steady. He fired 3 times at point-blank range. The shots hit the creature's arm, and finally it let go. They watched it fall, tumbling through the air and crash into the ground below, but even as it hit, it was already getting back up. These things are tough, Ryan said, pulling himself back inside. Jacob flew the shuttle away from the valley. Everyone okay? People nodded, breathing hard. Helen was crying quietly. Chris looked like he might throw up. But they were all alive. Captain, Alan's voice came through the radio. Nicole's team is trapped at the research station. The second creature has them pinned down. Jacob turned the shuttle toward Claire's location. They were 8 miles away. At full speed, they could be there in 5 minutes. But the sun was already touching the horizon. They had maybe 40 minutes of daylight left. Hold on, Nicole, he said quietly. We're coming. Back at the research station, Nicole and her team were running out of options. The creature had tried forcing the door twice. The metal was bending. It wouldn't hold much longer. We need a new plan, Peter said. Any ideas? Nicole looked around the small station. There were computers, scientific equipment, and sample containers. Nothing useful for fighting a 9-foot armored predator. Then she saw the chemical storage locker. Claire, what chemicals do you have here? The usual stuff. Acids for soil testing. Bases for neutralization. Some ethanol for sterilizing equipment. Why? Nicole smiled for the first time since landing on this moon. Because I think I know how to stop that thing. Nicole worked quickly at the chemical storage locker. She mixed ethanol with some cleaning acid that Claire used for equipment. The mixture started smoking slightly. It wasn't an explosive, but it would burn hot and fast. What's the plan? Ryan asked, watching the door shake as the creature hit it again. We make it think the station is on fire, Nicole explained. It might back off to avoid the heat. While it's distracted, we run for the shuttle. That's a big might, Peter said. You have a better idea? Nobody did. Nicole poured the mixture into 3 metal containers and found some cloth to use as fuses. She had made 3 improvised firebombs. The door was bending more with each hit. The creature was getting frustrated. They could hear it making clicking sounds outside like it was communicating with something. It's talking to the other one, Claire said. They're planning something. Nicole lit the first firebomb and threw it out the window on the left side of the station. It landed in the grass and burst into bright yellow flames. The fire spread quickly across the dry vegetation. She threw the second one out the right window. Now flames surrounded 2 sides of the station. The creature saw the fire and backed away. Its sensory spines were all pointing at the flames, vibrating rapidly. The heat was bothering it. Now, Nicole shouted. They burst out the front door and ran for the shuttle. The creature saw them immediately and started to pursue, but the wall of fire slowed it down. It had to go around, giving them precious seconds. Ryan reached the shuttle first and got the door open. Peter helped Claire inside, then climbed in himself. Nicole was last, and as she reached the door, the creature cleared the fire. It charged across the scorched ground, moving impossibly fast. Ryan fired his railgun. The shot hit the creature in the shoulder, spinning it around but not stopping it. Nicole dove through the shuttle door and Ryan slammed it shut. The creature crashed into the side of the shuttle hard enough to rock the entire vehicle. "Go, go, go!" Nicole yelled. Peter took the controls and lifted off. The creature jumped after them, its claws scraping the hull. But this time it couldn't hold on. They climbed into the sky while the creature fell back to the ground. "Everyone okay?" Peter asked. "Alive," Ryan replied. "That's about all I can say." Claire was shaking but unhurt. Nicole checked her arm where she had scraped it, diving through the door. "Just a minor cut." They had been lucky. Jacob's voice came through the radio. "Nicole, do you copy?" "We're heading to the landing zone." "What's your status?" "We're clear. Both creatures are still on the surface. We're heading to the rendezvous point now." "Copy that. See you there in 10 minutes." The landing zone was a flat area of rock where both shuttles could land safely. It was also the only place the horizon could descend low enough to pick them up, without having to make multiple trips. Everyone needed to be there together. Jacob's shuttle arrived first. The 10 people inside climbed out carefully, stretching their cramped limbs. Frank hugged his wife Claire when Nicole's shuttle landed a few minutes later. Everyone was exhausted but relieved. They had done it. Everyone was safe. Alan's voice came through their communicators. "Captain, the horizon is beginning descent. We'll be there in 15 minutes. But I'm tracking both creatures. They're moving toward your position fast. You have maybe 12 minutes before they arrive." Jacob looked at his tired crew. 20 people total. Most of them scientists, not soldiers. They had some weapons, but not many. And they were facing 2 extremely dangerous predators that were getting smarter with every encounter. "We need to hold this position until the horizon arrives," he said. "Everyone spread out. Form a defensive perimeter around the shuttles." They moved into position. Ryan and Nicole took the north side where the creatures were approaching from. Kevin and Greg covered the east. Lisa and Frank watched the west. The others stayed near the shuttles, ready to run if needed. The sun was very low now, just barely above the horizon. Long shadows stretched across the ground. The temperature was already dropping. They could see their breath in the air. "Movement," Ryan said quietly. "Both of them. Coming through the trees." The 2 creatures emerged from the forest together. They moved side by side, coordinating their approach. The larger one was on the left, the smaller one on the right. They stopped about 50 yards away and watched the humans. For a long moment, nobody moved. The creatures studied the defensive formation. The humans kept their weapons ready. Both sides were waiting for the other to make the first move. Then the larger creature did something strange. It sat down, just lowered itself to the ground and sat there watching. The smaller one circled slowly to the right, but it didn't attack either. "They're testing us again," Lisa said, "trying to see if we'll panic and run." "Hold position," Jacob ordered. "Don't give them what they want." The minutes crawled by. The creatures kept watching. The humans kept watching back. It was the strangest standoff Jacob had ever experienced. These weren't mindless monsters. They were thinking, planning, learning. "Captain, I'm reading something on my scanner," Lisa said. She looked at her device, then at the creatures, then back at the device. "This doesn't make sense." "What is it?" "The larger one. It's old. Really old. Based on cellular degradation patterns, I'd estimate it's at least 200 years old. Maybe more. How is that possible?" "I don't know. Maybe their species has long lifespans. Or maybe whatever put it in that temple also preserved it somehow." Kevin was looking at the temple symbols that Lisa had photographed earlier. His translation program was working on them slowly. "I'm getting more of the translation. It says something about hunters, warriors created for war." "Their weapons," Nicole realized. "Someone made them, built them to fight, and then locked them away when the war was over," Lisa added. "Which means they're even more dangerous than we thought. These aren't just predators. They're soldiers." The larger creature stood up suddenly. Both creatures moved forward a few steps. The humans raised their weapons. The creatures stopped again. "They're probing our defenses," Nicole said. "Seeing how we react. Classic military tactics." "How long until the horizon gets here?" Jacob asked. 8 minutes, Alan replied over the radio. 8 minutes. They just needed to hold out for 8 more minutes. Then they could leave this moon and these creatures behind forever. The smaller creature made a sudden dash to the right. Ryan tracked it with his gun but didn't fire. It was a feint, testing their reaction speed. The creature stopped and returned to its position. Smart, Ryan muttered. Very smart. The larger creature moved left. Kevin tracked it. Same thing, just a test. The creatures were learning the humans' response patterns. Then both creatures charged at once from different directions. Open fire! Jacob shouted. Railgun shots filled the air. The creatures dodged and weaved, avoiding most of the shots. The few that hit bounced off their armor. They weren't trying to reach the humans, Jacob realized. They were trying to scatter them, break up the defensive formation. Stay in position, he yelled. Don't let them separate us. The creatures broke off their attack and retreated back to the tree line. The humans held their ground. Nobody had been hurt, but everyone's nerves were on edge. 5 minutes, Alan said. The creatures tried twice more. Each time they attacked from different angles using different tactics. Each time the humans held their position. The creatures were learning, but so were the humans. They're getting frustrated, Lisa observed. Look at their body language. The spines are flattening. That's a sign of confusion in many species. Good, Jacob said. Stay confused. The sun touched the horizon. The temperature dropped noticeably. In a few more minutes, it would be dangerously cold. The creatures seemed to feel it too. Their movements became slower, more cautious. Maybe the cold affected them as well. 2 minutes, Alan said. I can see you on visual. Everyone looked up. The massive shape of the horizon was descending through the darkening sky. Its engines glowed bright against the purple twilight. The creatures saw it too. They looked up at the huge ship, and for the first time they seemed uncertain. They had never seen anything that large before. They didn't know what to make of it. The horizon settled onto the landing zone with a deep rumble. The cargo bay door opened and warm light spilled out. Everyone inside, Jacob ordered. Move fast but stay together. The crew ran for the ship. The creatures started to follow, but the horizon's defensive guns tracked them. Warning shots hit the ground in front of them. They stopped staring up at the weapons. One by one, the humans reached the cargo bay. Jacob was the last one in. He stood in the doorway for a moment, looking back at the two creatures. They stood there in the growing darkness, watching him. Two ancient warriors from a forgotten war now stranded on an empty moon. Close the door, he said quietly. The cargo bay door sealed shut. The horizon lifted off, climbing back toward space. Through the windows, they could see the moon falling away below them. The last thing they saw before the planet disappeared from view was two small shapes standing in the landing zone, looking up at the sky. They had survived. But Jacob knew he would never forget those 6 glowing eyes watching him in the darkness. The horizon traveled away from the moon, putting distance between the ship and the two creatures below. Jacob sat in the medical bay while Peter treated the cuts on his back from the earlier attack. The wounds weren't deep, but they hurt badly. You should rest, Captain, Peter said as he applied bandages. You've been awake for 18 hours straight. I'll rest when I finish my report, Jacob replied. Lisa entered the medical bay carrying her data pad. She looked exhausted but excited in the way scientists get when they discover something important. Jacob, you need to see this. I've been analyzing all the data we collected about those creatures. She showed him her screen. It displayed images of the temple walls, the strange symbols, and scans of the creatures themselves. I managed to translate more of the temple inscriptions. These creatures were called the Hunters of the Void. They were created by a species called the Architects about 10,000 years ago. Created how? Jacob asked. Biological engineering. The Architects were masters at manipulating genetics. They created the Hunters as living weapons to fight in a war against another alien civilization. The Hunters were perfect soldiers, fast, strong, intelligent, and nearly impossible to kill. Kevin entered the medical bay listening to Lisa's explanation. So what happened? Why were they locked up? The Hunters were too good at their job, Lisa continued. They won the war for the Architects. But after the war ended, the Architects realized they had a problem. The Hunters were designed to hunt and kill. They couldn't turn off those instincts. So the Architects built prisons all over the galaxy and locked the Hunters away. That temple was one of the prisons, Jacob said. Yes, and we opened it. We released 2 of the most dangerous predators ever created. The weight of that mistake hung heavy in the air. Danny Price was dead because of that decision. Others had nearly died too. Is there any way to seal them back in the temple? Kevin asked. Lisa shook her head. The containment system was destroyed when we opened it. But I don't think we need to worry too much. That moon is in the middle of nowhere. No colonies nearby. No trade routes. The chances of anyone else landing there are extremely small. We should still report it, Jacob said. Mark the moon as restricted territory. Make sure nobody else makes the same mistake we did. Over the next few days, life on the horizon slowly returned to normal. The crew processed their samples and data from the moon. Claire wrote reports about the plant life she had discovered. Frank analyzed atmospheric readings. Everyone tried to focus on their work and forget about the creatures, but Jacob couldn't forget. He kept thinking about those 6 glowing eyes watching him. The intelligence behind them. The way the creatures had learned and adapted with each encounter. One evening he found Lisa in the science lab. She was still studying the scans of the creatures. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "I keep thinking about them," Lisa admitted. "Did you notice they never actually killed any of us?" "Danny disappeared, yes, but we never found his body. For all we know, he might have just gotten lost in the temple." Jacob thought about that. "You're right. They attacked our shuttles. They chased us. But they never actually tried to kill us directly." "I think they were studying us," Lisa said. "The same way we were studying them. They wanted to know what we were, how we fought, whether we were a threat." "And what do you think they concluded?" Lisa looked at her screens, showing images of humans and the hunters side by side. "I think they decided we were equals. Not prey, not enemies, just another intelligent species sharing the galaxy." That thought was both comforting and frightening. If the hunters were still alive on that moon, and if they were as intelligent as Lisa believed, what would they do now? Would they try to find a way off the planet? Would they hunt the native wildlife? Or would they simply wait, alone in the darkness, for something to happen? Jacob filed his official report with the Colonial Authority. He marked the moon as restricted and recommended that a warning beacon be placed in orbit. The authority approved both recommendations. Within a week, an automated probe was deployed to circle the moon, broadcasting warnings in multiple languages. 2 months later, the Horizon completed its survey mission and returned to Earth. The crew went their separate ways. Some retired. Some took new assignments. Jacob was offered a promotion and a desk job at Colonial Authority headquarters. He turned it down. "Why?" his superior asked. "You've had an exemplary career. This incident with the hunters doesn't change that." "It's not about the incident," Jacob explained. "It's about what I learned out there. There are things in this galaxy we don't understand, dangers we can't predict. Someone needs to be out there exploring carefully, making sure we don't make the same mistake again." He requested command of another survey ship. The authority granted his request. Within a month, Jacob was back in space with a new crew, exploring new systems, always cautious, always remembering. Lisa joined him. She said her research on the hunters had convinced her that there were thousands of other biological weapons hidden across the galaxy, waiting to be discovered. She wanted to find them before anyone else did. Kevin came too. And Nicole. And Ryan. Almost half the original crew requested transfers to Jacob's new ship. They had faced death together on that moon. That created a bond that was hard to break. Years passed. Jacob's crew discovered many things. Ancient ruins, new plant species, mineral deposits worth billions. But they never found another prison like the temple on that moon. Sometimes, late at night when he couldn't sleep, Jacob would look at the star charts and find the Kepler 442 system. He would wonder if the 2 hunters were still there, still alive, still waiting. Then one day, 15 years after the incident, something happened that changed everything. A commercial mining ship called the Endeavor reported finding 2 unusual creatures on an asteroid in the outer rim. The creatures were large, armored, and extremely hostile. The mining crew barely escaped with their lives. Jacob read the report and felt his blood run cold. The description matched the hunters perfectly. But how? That asteroid was 300 light-years from the moon, where they had left the creatures. He contacted the Endeavor's captain. "Did these creatures arrive in a ship? Any sign of technology?" "No ship," the captain replied. "But there was something strange. We found pieces of metal scattered around the asteroid, like parts of a destroyed spacecraft. Old parts covered in ice and radiation damage." Jacob understood immediately. The hunters hadn't stayed on the moon. Somehow they had found or built a ship. Maybe they used parts from the abandoned shuttles. Maybe they found other technology in the temple. Either way, they had escaped, and now they were out in the galaxy, free to go wherever they wanted. Lisa's reaction surprised him. When he told her the news, she smiled. "Good for them," she said. "Good for them. Lisa, these are dangerous predators. They're survivors, Lisa corrected. Just like us. We were trapped on Earth for thousands of years before we learned to build ships and explore space. The hunters were trapped in that temple for 10,000 years. Now they're free. I think they deserve that freedom. But what if they hurt someone? What if they don't? Lisa challenged. We assumed they were mindless killing machines. But they never killed us when they had the chance. Maybe they just want to explore, to find a place where they belong. Jacob wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Everything Lisa said made sense. The hunters had been created as weapons, yes. But they had also shown mercy when they could have shown none. They had let the humans escape when they could have killed them all. Maybe they were more than just weapons. Maybe they were people in their own way. Different from humans, yes. Dangerous, certainly. But deserving of a chance to live free. The colonial authority issued warnings about the hunters. Ships were advised to avoid contact if possible, and report any sightings immediately. Some captains called for a hunting expedition to track down and eliminate the creatures, but the authority refused. We will not start a war with an intelligent species based on fear alone, the director stated. The hunters have not attacked any colonies or unprovoked vessels. Until they do, we will observe and monitor, but we will not hunt. It was a controversial decision. Some people called it weak. Others called it wise. Jacob thought it was simply the right thing to do. Over the next decade, there were occasional sightings of the hunters on remote asteroids and uninhabited moons. They seemed to prefer places far from civilization. They avoided contact with humans and other species. They were explorers now, not soldiers. Jacob eventually retired from space exploration at the age of 60. He settled on a colony world and wrote a book about his experiences. The book became popular, especially among young people who dreamed of exploring the stars. One chapter of the book was titled, The Day We Met the Hunters. In it, Jacob described the events on that moon 15 years earlier. He wrote about the fear, the danger, and the impossible choices they had faced. But he also wrote about courage. About the moment when his crew decided to stand and fight instead of running away. About the moment when the hunters chose mercy instead of killing. About the moment when two species looked at each other and recognized something familiar. We were all survivors that day, Jacob wrote. Human and hunter alike, we all wanted to live. We all wanted to protect our own. And in the end, we all chose to walk. 50 years after the incident on the moon, humanity had spread across hundreds of star systems. Colonies thrived on distant worlds. Trade routes connected civilizations. Peace had lasted for decades. Jacob Miller had passed away at the age of 95, remembered as one of the great explorers of his generation. His granddaughter, Kate Miller, followed in his footsteps. She became a xenodiplomat, someone who made first contact with new alien species and helped establish peaceful relationships. She had heard her grandfather's stories many times as a child. The tale of the hunters had shaped her entire career. Kate was 32 years old when she received an unusual message at her office on Europa Station. The message came from a remote monitoring station in the Sagittarius arm of the galaxy. It was marked urgent. Ambassador Miller, we need your expertise. We've made contact with an unknown species. They match the description of the creatures your grandfather encountered. The hunters of the void, they're requesting a meeting. Kate felt her heart race. The hunters wanted to talk. After 50 years of avoiding contact, they were finally reaching out to humanity. This was either a historic opportunity or a terrible danger, maybe both. She assembled a small team. Her assistant, Ben Torres, a security officer named Grace Parker, and Dr. Oliver Lee, a xenobiologist who had studied Jacob's reports for years. Together, they boarded a fast courier ship and traveled to the coordinates the hunters had provided. The meeting place was an asteroid in an empty system far from any colonies. As their ship approached, they saw a vessel orbiting the asteroid. It was strange, clearly built by the hunters using salvaged parts from dozens of different ships. But it worked, and that was what mattered. They built a ship, Grace said quietly, just like your grandfather thought. The hunter ship sent a signal. Kate's computer translated it into text. The language was crude, clearly learned from intercepted human transmissions, but understandable. We talk, you come. Bring no weapons. Kate looked at her team. Well, this is it. Who wants to make history? They took a small shuttle to the asteroid surface. The gravity was light, barely enough to keep them on the ground. They walked carefully across the rocky terrain until they saw them. Two hunters stood waiting, They were just as Jacob had described. 9 feet tall, 4 arms, 6 glowing eyes, covered in black armor, absolutely terrifying. But they made no aggressive moves. They simply stood there waiting. Kate took a deep breath and stepped forward. She raised one hand in greeting, a gesture that meant peace in dozens of human cultures. She hoped it translated. One of the hunters raised one of its 4 arms in response. It was awkward, clearly not a natural gesture for them, but the meaning was clear. They understood. Kate activated her translator. It would convert her words into simple concepts the hunters might understand. She spoke slowly and clearly. I am Kate Miller, granddaughter of Jacob Miller. The human who met you 50 years ago. We come in peace. We want to understand. The larger hunter made a series of clicking sounds. Kate's translator struggled to interpret them but eventually produced text. We remember. Jacob Miller, brave, did not run. We were weapons. You showed us more. Kate felt tears forming in her eyes. These creatures remembered her grandfather. After all these years, they remembered the human who had stood his ground. Why did you contact us? She asked. After 50 years of avoiding humans, why now? The hunter was silent for a moment, as if thinking carefully about its answer. Then it clicked again. We are dying, our kind. Created to fight, not to live. Bodies failing. Need help. Oliver stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. Dying how? What's wrong? The smaller hunter responded this time. Its voice was higher-pitched, more musical somehow. Architects made us perfect soldiers. Short life. Fight hard, die fast. But war ended. We lived. Bodies not designed for long life. Breaking down. Oliver understood immediately. The hunters had been designed with limited lifespans, probably to prevent them from becoming a long-term threat. They were meant to win a war and then die naturally. But these two had survived far longer than their creators had intended. Their bodies were slowly failing. Can we help you? Kate asked. Can human medicine do anything? We do not know, the larger hunter replied. We ask. You help or you refuse. We accept both. We owe you. Jacob Miller could have killed us. He did not. We remember debts. Grace spoke up from behind Kate. What do you mean you owe us? You don't owe humanity anything. We were taught to destroy, the hunter explained. To hunt, to kill. Then we met humans who did not run, who stood and faced death with honor. You taught us there is more than hunting. There is courage. There is choice. We chose to be more than weapons. Because of you. Kate felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride in her grandfather. Sadness for these creatures who were dying. And hope. Because maybe humanity and the hunters could find a way forward together. I cannot make promises, she said honestly. I am just one human. But I will bring your request to our leaders. I will tell them your story. I will ask them to help. That is all we ask, the hunter replied. We wait. We have waited 50 years. We can wait longer. The meeting ended peacefully. Kate and her team returned to their ship and immediately sent reports to Earth. The response was mixed. Some people wanted to help the hunters. Others argued that humanity had no obligation to creatures that had been created as weapons. The debate raged across human space. Kate gave speeches at universities and government buildings. She showed recordings of her conversation with the hunters. She told her grandfather's story over and over, emphasizing the moment of choice, the moment when humans and hunters had both chosen mercy. These creatures were built to be monsters, she said in one famous speech. But they chose to be something else. They chose to learn, to explore, to seek help rather than take it by force. They chose to be better than their design. Can we choose to do the same? Can we help them despite our fears? The debate took months. In the end, humanity voted to help. Not because the hunters deserved it, not because humans owed them anything, but because it was the right thing to do. Because showing compassion to former enemies was what separated civilization from barbarism. A team of the best human geneticists and doctors traveled to the asteroid where the hunters waited. They brought equipment, medicine, and hope. The work was difficult. Hunter biology was unlike anything they had seen before. But slowly, carefully, they found ways to stabilize the failing systems in the hunters' bodies. It took 3 years, but eventually they succeeded. The treatment couldn't make the hunters immortal, but it could give them normal lifespans, maybe another 50 or 60 years, enough time to live, not just survive. The two hunters were grateful in their own way. They offered to share knowledge with humanity. Information about the architects in the ancient war, technology salvaged from ruins, stories of other species and worlds they had encountered during their travels. Most importantly, they offered friendship, a bridge between two species that had started as potential enemies and become something more. Kate visited the hunters many times over the years. She learned their language. She taught them about human culture. They taught her about their own experiences and perspectives. A strange friendship grew between them. One day, the larger hunter asked Kate a question that had clearly been troubling it for a long time. Why did Jacob Miller not kill us? He had weapons. We were trapped. He could have eliminated threat. Why did he walk away? Kate thought about her grandfather. She remembered the stories he had told her, the lessons he had taught. She smiled and gave the only answer she knew. Because he saw you, not as monsters or weapons or threats. He saw you as living beings who wanted to survive, just like him, just like all of us. And he believed that every life has value, even life that is different from his own. The hunter was quiet for a long moment. Then it said something that Kate would never forget. Jacob Miller was wise. We understand now. Life is precious, all life. We were taught to end life. You taught us to protect it. We will remember this always. Years passed. Kate continued her work as a diplomat. She helped establish formal relations between humanity and several alien species. But her work with the hunters remained her most important achievement. The two hunters eventually left the asteroid and traveled to a colony world where several species lived together peacefully. They became teachers, sharing their knowledge of survival and adaptation with young beings of all species. They became symbols of redemption and change. Kate was 60 years old when the larger hunter died peacefully in its sleep. It was 178 years old, far longer than any of its kind had ever lived. The entire colony mourned its passing. Humans, aliens, and the surviving hunter all gathered to honor its memory. At the memorial service, Kate spoke about her grandfather and the day he met the hunters. She spoke about fear and courage, about the choice to run or stand, about the choice to kill or show mercy. My grandfather could have been a hero by destroying a threat, she said. Instead, he became a hero by recognizing a life. That choice changed everything. It changed the hunters. It changed humanity. It showed us all that we are not defined by what we were created to be. We are defined by what we choose to become. The surviving hunter stood,